we're going to continue our series of the coolest pet reptiles from every continent. Today, we're going to talk about a continent that isn't usually famous for reptiles, and even then, a lot of them have quite a bit of overlap into, Central Asia, or what I personally like to call Eurasia, because I don't think it's two continents, and I will die on that hill, but we're not going to get into that. So this one is not a species that I usually highlight, or even a type of reptile that I usually highlight when talking about a good pet, but that is actually a Greek or Russian tortoise. So those are two different species. They're actually they're in the testudo, so that's the tortoises, and they're all in the same family. There's four different species, but I'm mostly going to be talking about the Greeks and the Russians, because those are what I think are the most commonly available and probably some of the better ones. The other ones are the Hermans and the Egyptian. But these guys, they occupy parts of northern Africa into the Mediterranean, parts of southern Europe. And obviously encompassing that whole area, a lot of that, their range does vary quite a bit. And obviously there's some differences between the Greeks and the Russians, but they do share a lot of common habitat, and it does vary. There's, drier scrublands, there's rocky fields, there's savannas, there's open meadows, there's even parts that dally into almost swampy. But it's usually fairly arid and rocky or savanna-y as far as their habitat normally goes. They are not super high temperature like you think of, like a sulcata tortoise, the spurred flies of Africa, but it does stay fairly warm and fairly consistent because of that part of the world. So when you talk about husbandry with them, you need to keep them at least a little bit warm. These guys are really cool because they don't get very large, which I think is very important when you talk about a pet tortoise. The Greeks stay a little bit smaller in like the 5 to 8 size carapace range, and then with the Russians a little bit larger, a little over 10 inches. They have, being tortoises, they do have some pretty long lives. The Russians are usually in like the 20, 25-ish range. The Greeks are in the 25, 30-ish range on average, although there are a lot, so it's anecdotal, but there are a lot of stories of them living very, very, very long into their 60s, 70s, some of them even into their hundreds, supposedly. Although I don't know how verifiable that is, but I'm going to throw that in anyway because I think it's really cool. As far as tortoises go, just remember, I don't personally think they're great beginner reptiles, if that's the phrase we want to throw out there. They just take a little bit more extra than they need. They need the UVB, they need varied diets, they need lots of space, they don't do well with glass, so the tortoise tables or large custom-built enclosures, even for these smaller ones, you need at least a good 4 feet plus in one direction, probably two directions for them. It doesn't need to be super high, but nice plenty of sizes with that. Then the final little bit of info for these guys is, personally, I think if you have the option, go with a Greek tortoise because they are more captive bred. Out of all of them, they're the ones who do best in captivity as far as breeding goes, so they're more widely available with captive bred. With that comes a little bit of a higher price tag, but you're not having to deal with imports, usually adults, sometimes with parasites from the Russian tortoises. So even though we have one, Boa Bob, I think if you're going to go look for a pet, that you should stick with the Greek tortoise. This next one is probably my favorite of this list, although you won't believe me with what I'm about to just completely fumble over. And that is the European glass lizard, or the legless lizard, or the Sheltopulus, or however that is pronounced. I'll put it right here. I have never been able to pronounce it correctly, even phonetically, so one of these days I'll stumble across somebody who will say it correctly, or at least I will assume it's said correctly, and that's what we'll go with. But these guys are really cool. So these are the legless lizards. They are found in southern Europe and into Western Asia. So again, that's more of that central-ish Asia area, that a lot of that kind of gets thrown in with like Middle East and like Old Angola and stuff like that. But these guys are really cool. They're actually really big for legless lizards. There are several species of them out there, including here in the United States, but these guys are true giants compared to a lot of them. From snout to tip, they can sometimes reach almost 4 feet long, which is a big thing. They have very long tails. I assume mostly for bounce. They're not prehensile at all, but they're really, really cool lizards. They're found in fairly different habitats, but usually, old growth forests with lots of logs, fairly open meadows, and they're found throughout different areas. They're fairly diurnal, which means that UV light is very helpful for them, and they are omnivores. And so these guys in captivity, which they do very well in captivity, sometimes reaching life of over 50 years. But in captivity, because they are so long-lived, they're fairly hardy. And the things that they can eat, they will eat insects, they will eat hard-boiled eggs, they will eat sometimes pinky mice in very small amounts. They will eat canned snails. They will eat all sorts of stuff, which is great because you can keep changing it up. It gives them a very healthy diet. And one of the other cool things about these guys is that they're actually not truly legless. On some of them, you can actually see, usually on the larger ones, you can actually see a little bit of like a vestigial limb down by the cloaca, and that's not necessarily tied with male or female. They've been found on both of them, but you can actually see it sometimes on them. So they're not truly legless, but really, let's be honest, they're legless lizards. A lot of people get freaked out by them because, you know, they have that lizard head, they have the auditory meatus, the little ear hole, the external ear, but they have no legs and they're really long and they move kind of weird. But I think they're really cool and I would love to have a couple of them. Really, really cool. They don't breed very well in captivity. A lot of people have long-term, sometimes years and years, pairs or groups of them, and a lot of them don't successfully breed. So most of the ones that you see are unfortunately imports. But people are working that, you know, like people at Emily at Snake Discovery, I think, are working that. Tommy Crutchfield has a big group of them. A lot of people different work with them. So fingers crossed, they will start to, you know, be a little bit more readily available in captivity. This next one's actually really cool, and I think will be one of the species of snakes that isn't commonly kept, but it's going to start really growing in popularity very soon. And that is the Russian Sand Boa. So again, the Russian part is a bit of a misnomer, same with the Russian tortoise and a lot of other ones, where their range is more Central Asia, but it does go into Russia. However, some of the first animals that we did get were exported from Russia, hence Russian Sand Boa. These guys are really, really cool, and honestly, I kind of like them more than the Kenyan Sand Boas. One of these days, I'm going to get some from, I already know who, and I'm going to mention them at the end of this little clip too. And so these guys are really, really cool. Obviously, they're a Sand Boa, very fossorial, so they spend a lot of time underground. They come from very dry, desert, arid places. However, they're a little bit different than the Kenyan Sand Boas. Their size is a little bit different too. You know, some of the Kenyans can get a little bit larger, a little bit heftier than these guys. You know, there is, again, some sexual dimorphism where females get a little bit larger, sometimes up to 2 feet. That's a little bit more rare. The males are a little bit smaller. These guys do spend a little bit more time above the substrate. So, you know, with the Kenyan Sand Boa, they're really cool. They have really cool patterns. I really like them. Those like calico ones, those are really cool, but you never see them because they spend all of their time underground. The Russian Sand Boas seem to be a little bit more curious and will spend more time above substrate. You'll actually see them every once in a while, other than their little graboid feeding response, and then they grab them and pull them back down. You can keep them very similarly to a Kenyan Sand Boa. Same substrates, you know, the aspen bedding works very well as, you know, loose, small, granular sand like play sand and things like that work very well. You can give them a little bit more things for them to climb up onto, unlike the Kenyan Sand Boas, who won't really make use of that at all. They will kind of climb up to that. And also, just like the Kenyan Sand Boas, they do have a variety of different morphs. Not quite as many, or at least as popular as far as I'm aware, as the Kenyans, but they do have several of them, including albino. They have a gray, like a cinnamon, I think a caramel, as well as blacks, which are really cool and very popular. I think it acts very similar to like an incomplete dominant, similar to like a lot of the ball python morphs, where if you put a black and a black, you can get normals, blacks, and super blacks, which eventually they go through an autogenetic change, just like a lot of other species, most famously the green tree python, yellow, red, turn into bright green, although we went nuts with those. But they start out kind of this brownish gray with a really cool dorsal pattern, and the super black, and all of them do it, but the super black specifically will eventually turn solid black, almost solid black snakes with like little starry little speckles along their sides and close to their bellies, which looks really, really cool. I don't know nearly as much about these as other species of snakes, but I personally think they're really cool and a great resource for these because I have absolutely zero issue, and I will always do it to throw it out to people who know more than me. Check out Rufus Darden. He knows so much about Sand Boas in general, and you know, Kenyan Sand Boas especially, but the Russian Sand Boas is what I think he knows the most about, is the most passionate about, and what he's very well known for. Go check him out if you're interested in the Russian Sand Boas. This next one is really cool, and it was really popular for a long time, and it's been in the hobby both in the States and in Europe for a very long time, but it kind of died down. But I'm starting to see him come back up again, and that is the jeweled lacerda. It's also known as the jeweled lizard, or the ocellated lizard, or the ocellated jeweled lizard. There's a bunch of different names, but in the hobby we just call them jeweled lacerdas. Lacerdas refers to a family of lizards that all kind of have the same body shape. You know, not super long tail, but fairly long, nice little toes, a big, nice, strong head and jaw. But the jeweled lacerda specifically is one of the largest species of them. Most of them are found in Europe and the Mediterranean area. Specifically, these guys are found in southern Europe, so in Spain, Portugal, a little bit into like southern France, and a little bit of northwestern Italy. These guys are a very, very cool lizard that get their name for a pretty obvious reason, and that is those big oscillations or islets, just like the ocelot, the leopards, the Oscar fish. They all have that. That's what they call the oscillation, or the ocellaris, that are all over them. And their bright green body in the ocellaris that can be almost like a bright, vivid blue that look really cool in like the big males. A little bit of sexual dimorphism, male or a little bit bigger. These guys are really cool semi-arboreal lizard. They're usually found in fairly like rocky-ish area, but they are known to be found on boulders, in trees, or in and around houses, and like old vineyards, because it's, you know, southern France and Spain, there's going to be vineyards and stuff. They're found there, sometimes even along roads. They make a really cool species of lizard to keep. They are mostly insectivores, but a lot of people will give them little bits of like fruit as treats very sparingly, but mostly insectivores. They don't get very large, you know, nose to tail about 3-ish feet. But again, they are active diurnal lizards, so you want to give them plenty of space. So at least a 4x2, but I think 6 feet would be better, but plenty of places for them to climb on and to burrow under. They do breed very well in captivity. They mostly, I think they're starting to come back because they have a different phase, a melanistic phase, so i.e. solid black. And it's a recessive trait that a lot of people have, so you'll see a lot of like jeweled lacerdas, het for melanistic, het for black, and that's the solid jet black animal. Although personally, I like the normal ones. I normally like the jet black animals, but I really like just the regular looking, you know, jeweled lacerda original in the wild morph, right? Another final fun fact about these guys is a lot of times they're marketed as like mini tegus because they kind of have the same basic body shape, like the big head and powerful jaws, but they're a lot more skittish than tegus, even the Colombian tegus too. They're really more skittish and much smaller because of that. And so, you know, if you're going to decide to try to get one to be the cool, like, hangout animal like a tegu, it's going to take a lot more patience, a lot more time to work with them. Almost more like working with, like, a little bit of, like, a small iguana or, like, a water dragon or something like that. And for this last one is honestly a really cool species that one of these days I might end up working with. And out of all of these, the ones that I would be most likely to get, as much as I would love to get a jeweled lacerda, would probably either be the European glass lizard, legless lizard, or this one, the Russian rat snake. Now, that being said, this is again another one where the name is a bit of a misnomer, why I will die on the hill of Eurasia. These guys are mostly found in the Central Asia parts, but their range does go into southern Russia. But it also, a lot of it is in China and Korea and places like that. But that being said, a lot of them did come out of Russia again, so Russian rat snake, but not always just that. They have a lot of different really cool names, but one of the more common ones until recently was the Manchurian or the Asian black water snake or racer. So even then, that was 4 different ones. These guys are really, really cool. So as the water snake implies, they are oftentimes found in areas that you would see like a water snake, ponds, streams, marshes, those type of areas. But they have also been found in rocky boulder strewn meadows. They've been found in old growth forests. They've been found in trees 20 feet in the air. So they're very adaptable. They are generalists when it comes to their feeding, and they'll kind of go all over the place, which is really, really cool. They also kind of look like little mini Boelen's pythons. So, you know, like the holy grail of reptile keeping, the Boelen's. They look like little mini ones of those because as full-grown adults, because they do go through a small osteogenic change as well as a lot of other species, whereas adults, they will be that really dark brown chocolatey color to almost a jet black with really thin yellow-white to bright yellow bands throughout them. So it kind of very looks much like a smaller miniature Boelen's python. They make really great pets because they're very active, they're fairly diurnal, And if you give him like a big 4x2 enclosure or larger, and you'll see me probably use that phrase a lot because I think a 4x2 is a really good standard size, that you can give them plenty of places to climb and hide and move around. Once they get comfortable, they will kind of be out and about all the time, and they're really cool to watch and interact with. Unfortunately, like a lot of the other snakes that we keep, even in a large area, they'll make use of it, just not when we're out. But these guys usually do, as well as they have a bit of a reputation for being a little bit more docile, a little bit more handleable, or at least more amicable to being handled, as I fumble over that. These guys are really, really cool. And personally, I think they make great pets and be really cool to get a pair of them one day. I talked about them in the Asian rat snake video. If you want to check that out, try to remember to put the link right there. And then another final fun fact about these guys is these guys are actually an invasive species. There is a small population outside of an airport in Denmark where they think they were released, like somebody brought them in, tried to sell them, and then either couldn't or was not legally allowed to and let them go. Well, because they are found at elevation, at different climates, they're a little bit hardier, they established a population near that airport in Denmark in the Netherlands. But just another little fun fact about that. A lot of other places have issues with invasive species. So PSA at the end, don't release your pet reptile. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I know a lot of these ones ended up going into that more like Central Asia, Asian species. But if I do a really cool European reptile video, not necessarily pet reptile, just cool reptiles, you'll see a few more that are more historically and classically and accurately European reptiles. If you guys have any questions, comments, hopefully I didn't slip up too much in this video, please let me know in the comments. As always, please, please, please go check out and support US ARC. They need our help more than ever. They're one of the only ones fighting for our rights to keep those reptiles, and the hobby is under great risk right now. Not just reptiles, pretty much everything. Tropical fish, rabbits, gerbils, hamsters, pretty much anything that isn't a cat or dog or most livestock is at serious risk right now. So please go check out US ARC. I have the link below this video and every other video that I can. And if you please could, or if you have the cash to spare, you should consider joining and becoming a member of US ARC too. That's what we got to do. Again, thank you so much. Had to put that in there. I'm going to be saying it a lot too. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you're enjoying all of the reptile content. Hope you guys are having a fairly good year. It's not as bad as the last ones, right? Hopefully, hope you're having a great day, and we'll check you next time.